Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at building a custom 7 hybrid. If you're interested in that, let's go ahead and dive in. All right, let's talk a little bit more about this build. Now, hybrids are not uncommon. It's pretty common for most players of different skill levels to maybe at least have one hybrid to bridge the gap between their fairway woods and their irons. However, I've had a little bit of an experiment this summer with using hybrids a lot more deeper down into the bag. Not just a 2 or a 3 or a 4 hybrid, but all the way down to 5, 6, and maybe even a 7 hybrid. And the idea or the concept there is hybrids are super easy to hit. Basically, if you look up different reviews about 6 or 7 hybrids, some of the comments they'll make is that it feels like cheating, or they're point and shoot. They're just very easy to launch up in the air and hit really straight. And frankly, what more could you want in the game of golf than to do just that? Now, the problem though is that most of these hybrids are made for people that aren't really maybe in my fitting category. They're seniors or ladies or slower swing speeds. Now, I'm not the fastest swing speed in the world. My driver club head speed is between maybe 100 and 105 miles an hour. My 150-yard club is my 8-iron. So take that for what you will. But typically, I would fit very well into, like I said, a 2 or 3 hybrid, but then when you get to the 5, 6, or 7, the shafts get really long, they get really lightweight, they get really flexy. So I'm going to try to build a custom one for me that's going to fit according to my spec. So I've got this club head here. This is a Cobra Rad Speed 31 degree 7 hybrid. It's actually technically a ladies club. You can see a little bit of the pink shading, but it's brand new, never been hit. And I'm going to make this into a hybrid club that will work for me. So we need to go ahead. The biggest thing here is these clubs are generally meant to have long and very lightweight shafts, maybe like a 60-gram regular or senior or ladies flex type shaft. And I want to put like maybe a 90-gram stiff flex shaft in this thing. We've got to take a little bit of consideration here as far as how we're going to swing weight it and at what kind of length we're going to build it at. That's the other thing that I would say is with some of these hybrids, you do want them to be a little bit longer. If a standard 7-iron is 37 inches, I might make this 37.5 or maybe 38 inches, but I don't want to make it so terribly long. The shorter that the shaft is, I feel like it's a little bit more easier to hit center contact. That's one reason why your 9-iron feels easier to hit than, say, like your 4-iron, because it's got a shorter shaft. So I'm going to experiment basically with that concept with this, in making it have a shorter shaft, heavier shaft, stiffer shaft, but something that still plays well to my specs. And we're going to test it out and see how this produces, what kind of club, what kind of ball flight this produces for me. So let's go ahead and dive into the build now. Okay, so my next consideration is to think about how these are going to flow. This is a little look at my golf bag. You can see I got a lot of head covers because I play a lot of hybrids. But here on the bottom, I've got a 7, 8, 9. Now, in terms of loft, I have a 50-degree gap wedge, 45, 40, 35, 31. So this 7-iron will be loft for loft equivalent to the 31 hybrid that I've got. Now, that may or may not be a good thing. One of my experiences is that typically hybrids have longer, lighter weight shafts, and with their heads that are designed more for high launch, low spin, even if they're the same loft, they may tend to gap differently. So that's something I may need to think about. If I change this 31 7-iron for a 31 hybrid, if this club for me is like a 160, the 7 hybrid might be like a 165 or even 170. So we'll take a look at that. But for now, this is what I'm going to start with. And this is my 8-iron that I'm going to gap into. It's a PXG. And it has a True Temper Elevate Tour shaft in it. And I looked it up, it's a 117-gram shaft. I also would note that this 8-iron measures at 37 inches. And so probably going to look to make this 7 hybrid to be somewhere 37.5, maybe 38 inches in length. So next, I've been thinking about what kind of shaft I want to put in. And I'm looking at, this is all the stuff kind of I had in my basement. These 2 clubs here are the clubs that I've got that'll be above it. This is a 5 hybrid from Callaway, Epic Flash. And then this is a TaylorMade. This was kind of the first time I tried this experiment. This is a TaylorMade Sim Max 6 hybrid at 28 degrees loft. Both of these have a Matrix Cujo shaft, stiff flex at 95 grams. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I've got a 117 gram 8 iron, and then I've got a 95 gram 6 iron. So something maybe in the middle of those would be kind of nice. So maybe in more like the 100 gram range. It also maybe would be fine to go with more of the 115, 110 to match the iron if I wanted to keep the distance down. But if I wanted to get the distance up a little bit, I probably would go for more of this maybe 100 gram graphite shaft. So I have some options here in how I want to build it out and what kind of length, but basically these are the variables that you want to play around with and you want to think about. You know, if I really want to make sure that it blends well into the 8 iron, I probably will do maybe like a steel shaft that's more like 115 grams or maybe 110 or 100 grams. So I've got a couple options here. This is an old hybrid that has an old Aldila NV 85 gram stiff shaft. This is like a 3 hybrid though. This actually came out of an old Titleist that I played in college. And then these are a bunch of iron shafts here. This is a 7 iron, a Callaway Steelhead 7 iron. It's got a True Temper XP95 S300 shaft. And then this is similar. This is a set of pulls here. True Temper XP 100 S300 shaft. So I'm probably going to look at using one of these. So let's figure out which one gives me the right length and kind of like swing weight and all that stuff, and we'll test that a little bit. Okay, I found this True Temper XP 100, and it's an S300 stiff shaft. Came from a 6 iron, and when I kind of test fit it with this head, it goes right in between, gets me right to a my 8 iron was 37 inches, it gets me to 37 and a half, and then this is the 6 high, which is at 38, so it kind of steps in there perfectly. What I want to do now is take a look and see what things are weighing. So you can see that the head itself is coming in at 255 grams, which is definitely a little low. I want to say a 7 iron might be more like 270. And then let's check out this shaft. With the grip, it's coming in at 153 grams. I'm guessing the grip itself is 50 or 60 grams, so it probably is at about 100. So I think that's actually going to work very nicely. So let's kind of test this thing now with maybe a swing weighting test. Okay, I've got it on my old swing weight scale. It's an old Ping Balance. You can see it's, and I basically just rested the head. I haven't glued it, but it's on there. It's currently swing weighting right there at C7. Just by way of comparison, this is my 8 iron, and you can see it swing weights right at about D1, maybe just short of D1. And this is the 6 hybrid, and you can see this one actually comes in at about C9. So maybe even could use a little more lead tape on this guy. Part of that is I do build up the grip quite a bit on this, but any which way, I do think this will work. I might need to add a little bit of weight into the tip, and but I should be able to get it up to maybe about D0 would be my goal or my target, and I'd be pretty hopeful about achieving that. Club's all glued up. Got the 7 hybrid head on the XP100 shaft. This, for comparison, is right up next to my 7 iron. It measures, it's actually exactly the same in terms of length. I put it on my swing weight scale here, and we're measuring right at about C7 at the moment. You can see there it's measuring at about C7. It's probably a little bit light. So I'm going to supplement it with a little bit of lead tape to get the head weight exactly where I want it. All right, with that amount of lead tape, it gets me to... With that amount of lead tape, it gets me right to D0. I'm pretty happy with that. My goal was D1. D0 is close. I'm going to try it like this and see how it goes. The head kind of has these rails here, so I'm going to kind of try to get the tape, one of these areas, focused on. That'll help it not rub off as much if a lot of the contact's going to be on here. Maybe a little bit on the center area. Also going to try to get a little more towards the rear. But I mean, this amount of lead tape isn't going to change the center of gravity too much, so we're not going to worry too much about that. All right, this is the final result. 3 strips of lead tape. Not the prettiest fix in the world, but honestly, I'm pretty fine with it. And it's a pretty sharp-looking club. I will say, just kind of setting it down, looking at it, it is interesting. It's definitely, having a hybrid head on a relatively short shaft is definitely something to get used to, and it's got a lot of loft. But let's go ahead and hit a few balls and see what kind of numbers we get. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this test. I used 3 clubs. One was a PXG 0311 7-iron at 31 degrees loft, stiff shaft, 37.5 inches length. The second club was a Cobra F Max ladies hybrid. It's the first one that I built kind of before this one as a proof of concept. I got it for like 20 bucks. Same specs, stiff shaft, 37.5 inches of length, little lead tape. And then the third club is the Cobra that I just built. That has that XP100 shaft, stiff flex, 37.5 inches length with a lead tape, getting the swing weight to D0. I have a Vice Pro Plus golf ball here, and I'm hitting with each club. I'm hitting to make 5 swings that I consider to be good, solid strikes. With each one, I maybe had one that was really bad, and I just didn't even count it. So every time I hit a shot that I liked and would count, then I would take a photograph of the launch monitor data. Now I'm using a GC3 by Bushnell, so it gives me some basic data, but I do believe it's highly accurate. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the results of that data right now. All right, guys, I've got the numbers pulled up here, and I'm going to get right to the chase. You can take a look at the individuals if you want. But at the bottom, lines 25, 26, and 27, I have the averages there between the 0311 7-iron, the F-Max, and the rad speed. And interestingly enough, the rad speed has a huge jump in ball speed. You know, the other two are at about 113. The rad speed jumps really to like 120. The launch is actually a little bit lower at about 17 degrees compared to 19 and a half. The carry number is hugely jumped up to 176 average carry with the rad speed. That is a massive jump in carry that I was not expecting to have. And the spin is the lowest. I'm super just kind of amazed that the rad speed and the F-Max are so different. Basically, for however those club heads are constructed and how it interacts with my swing, the F-Max, I spin it really, really high. So maybe it just goes to show the importance of fitting. Not all hybrids act the same way. So with the F-Max, because I'm spinning it at 7,200 RPMs, which is a ton of backspin, on one hand, that means the carry is a lot shorter at 157, but it also means that the bunching is much tighter. The standard deviation is tight. The F-Max, the shortest shot was 155, and the furthest shot was 159. That's a very tight bunching. Whereas with the rad speed, the downside is Now on line 19, I had a 116 ball speed, 167 carry. That was kind of a miss hit, which maybe I should have pulled out. But contrast that with line 21, I've got 122 ball speed, 182 carry. That is a huge jump from the lowest to the farthest, which maybe makes it a little bit hard to justify putting the rad speed in the bag when the jump, the difference between the shortest and the furthest, is so great. So the other problem is gapping. I would say my 6 hybrid is like a 180 club. So if the 7 hybrid is 176, I almost wished I would have brought the 6 hybrid out to test it, because then my 8 iron is like a 150 club. So, I'm having a 25-yard gap between 8 iron and 7 high. And frankly, looking at this, I should probably consider carrying like both the 7 hybrid and the rad speed, or the 7 iron and the rad speed, because the 7 iron, if I go 158, 162, 7, 176 rad speed, that's a really good gapping there, which is kind of unexpected and interesting. So I think it just goes to show that with gapping, you just got to test the clubs. And for whatever reason, the rad speed is really high. The ball speed is just really high. The spin is low, so it's going to create this long carry. I'm going to take this club out and play it on course, but I have no idea how I'm going to incorporate it in my bag. It's going to take some creative finagling to get it to gap efficiently. And just in general, I think this is one takeaway, is whenever you're going from hybrid to iron, it's more than just loft. Hybrids are just going to hit the ball further. So if you're going to play a lot of hybrids and then transition into irons more in the middle of the iron set, you're going to create problems like this, where you might need to have 2 clubs in your bag that have the same static loft, but one's a hybrid, one's an iron, and therefore they gap perfectly. So just really curious to see this. Let me know your thoughts down below. If you have any thoughts on why the rad speed has such high ball speed, I'd be super curious to know about that. But this was a very interesting test for me. Hope you enjoyed it. See you again soon. Thanks. Bye.